Jordan, we are live.
Hello, people of the internet. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle. And I am joined today on the Saturday morning D&D show by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian. Say hello, sir.
Everybody.
And we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Matt Colville.
Not that special.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Matt. This is awesome.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I guess I'll just start off with, how are you? What's going on?
I'm tired.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Woke you up way too early for a Saturday morning D&D show? Or?
Well, I was up. I went and saw Black Panther for the second time last night.
Nice.
So we were out late, and then I've got a sick cat that we're trying to figure out what's wrong with.
Oh goodness!
So I'm happy to have the vet that I have as a 24-hour vet. So
yeah.
Very late at night after going to the movies, I had to go drive to my vet, pick the cat up, and we try to find out if we can see what's wrong with my cat beast. But yeah, otherwise, the Kickstarter is a lot of work trying to find time to get writing done while dealing with spinning all the plates. But happily, I have a whole bunch of really good people helping me out, and so it's not as overwhelming as it otherwise would be. I don't know how I would have done this. I thought I could do a Kickstarter basically by myself. That proved not possible.
Right.
No way it can happen. I'm very lucky that a friend of mine who's the QA lead at Turtle Rock Studios just took it upon himself to kind of run this months ago, October. He realized if someone else doesn't take this over, Matt's never going to even get started. And so he just started doing all the research and making schedules and lists and saying all right, you say you want to get minis done. By the way, he's super skeptical of that because he's a QA guy. He's like, this is never going to work. Let's stick to our core competencies. And I was like, but minis are cool. And they're the thing that was really exciting me about the Kickstarter. All the other stuff in the Kickstarter I've done before, but minis are neat. And so he's the one that went and found the vendor and did all the research. And I mean, the first thing he did, by the way, it's great having somebody like this in your corner, by the way, I recommend it, is he said, give me something to do. And I was like, okay, I want you to go. And I think I made a list of 10 different Kickstarters in this category, some in the 5th edition category, some just tabletop role playing. And I just said, I want a bunch of data about these. I want to know how much money they raised and how much money they raised wasn't the thing we were that interested in. We were way more interested in how many pledge levels were there? How many backers were there at every pledge level? Could we sort of reverse engineer which pledge levels worked and which ones didn't work, right? Because I think anybody that's been to Kickstarter, I've backed a little over 20 projects. You see stuff there where it's there's 20 different pledge levels.
Yeah.
What is going on? How I just want the thing. I am always that person that's I'm very happy to give you money. I very much want to support the creators, but make it easy for me to find the thing that is the product.
I love Kobold Press. I love Kobold Press, but they have hired a designer to make their pledge levels. And I'm if you have to hire a specific designer for your pledge levels, maybe it's a little too confusing, but they do very successful Kickstarters. So
yeah, I mean, people, I think that the success of the Kickstarter category, the board game RPG tabletop category on Kickstarter, is a result of them building inadvertently. I don't think Kickstarter, if you go to the Kickstarter front page, it doesn't matter what the most successful Kickstarter in that moment is. If it's a tabletop Kickstarter, it's not going to be featured on the front page.
Probably.
Kickstarter's all, they're obviously run by people who have a very specific idea of what Kickstarter should be used for. Right. And it's stuff it's often really esoteric stuff. But there is a definite community of tabletop gamers, mostly I think board gamers, but not exclusively, on Kickstarter. And they like all those pledge levels. Right. Me trying to make it simple for, my community is one thing, but it seems self-evident to me that the people who are really like backing Kickstarters and do it several times a year, when they see lots of pledge levels, they go, ooh, right, it's something for them to kind of research, look at, and pick between. Whereas I was very much let's make it as simple as possible. Let's have no more than 10 pledge levels. And in fact, I think that kind of screwed us a little bit, because there were definitely, if you decide let's only have 10 pledge levels in your Kickstarter, depending on what your Kickstarter's for, and we've got the stream and minis and a book, right, which is very weird. Combine that with only 10 pledge levels, and now there are a lot of people saying, but I want this, and there isn't a pledge level for that. This is why people have 20 pledge levels.
Like a pledge level for multiple books, maybe the people that wanted 3 books instead of one.
Well, yeah, I think that is that's something that the pledge manager is designed to handle, and there's several different pledge manager companies, and we've talked to all of them, and So we're going to be launching a pledge manager at some point in the future, and that allows people to treat it a little bit more like a web store.
Man.
But there were a lot of really common requests that people wanted this plus that, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And sometimes I couldn't remember why don't we have a pledge level like that? We had several meetings. I'm like, these are good requests. Why aren't we doing this? I don't remember. And my friends are like, because you said we should only have 10 pledge levels. And I was like, oh shit, yeah.
And your friends are, because you're right, you have a big crew helping you out. It's like Lars and Anna, right? So definitely give a shout out to those guys.
I've got my friend Lars, who's kind of acting as the producer of all the swag, right? He's the one handling everything, like the stickers and the shirts and the minis. I handle book production. I'm the one that I have the contact with the printer, and then Anna handles like all the logistics of the live production of the Kickstarter. So she's the one answering a lot of the emails and doing all the research basically that Lars doesn't do, handling everything that's not a physical product. And then I've got my friend Jerry, who's our live producer, and he's also the IT guy at Turtle Rock Studios, and he's the one looking for space right now. So that was part of the Kickstarter, was let's go raise money to and we didn't know when we launched the Kickstarter if we would get to that goal or how much money we would have. And I remember thinking, well, if it's $2,500 a month for rent and it's 3 years, that would be $90,000. Holy crap! Would Kickstarter, would the community fund $90,000? Probably not. So I had numbers in my head about like, well, if we only got this much from Kickstarter, then I personally would only be on the hook for this much money if we sign a 3-year lease, and I could probably do that without having to mortgage my house, right? So that's where we were, right? But very quickly, it was obvious that we had a completely different set of problems than the ones we thought we were going to have. And so Jerry's the one who's like, next week we're going to be looking at spaces. He's the one going and talking to the real estate broker, and so there's a ton of spaces near where we all kind of live and work. And so that's next week. And also Jerry's the guy who's making all the tech that runs all the cameras and lights and stuff like that. So yeah, if it wasn't for them, this never would have happened.
So it'll be like a Critical Role, almost like professional.
Oh yeah. I mean, except for the fact that you're going to be watching a bunch of nerdy ass game developers instead of a bunch of nerdy ass voice actors, and those guys are professionally charming people. So the difference between their live stream and our live stream is going to be drastic. Those are things you can't fix with technology. But yeah, as far as the tech goes, they use Blackmagic cameras, which I've seen and checked out. But Blackmagic cameras are, I don't know, they are professional gear, but to my eye, they're almost sort of like prosumer gear rather than professional gear. But they also use like a 3/4 or 1/2 inch lens for all their cameras, which means basically it's a form factor where you can't just go buy standard lenses and stick them on. You have to buy their lenses and stick them on. So I'm not sure what the advantage is there, but it's the camera they use. So we will definitely look at it, and we'll probably be getting more of these things. The Sennheiser MK416, which is sort of the workhorse of the business. It's the camera. It's the microphone that a lot of YouTubers, like MKBHD uses it. The guys at Linus Tech Tips use it. I've had one now for a year, and we'll probably have a bunch of them. It's funny thing is that my Heil PR40, if you're watching this and you're interested in audio gear, my Heil PR40 to my ear sounds way better than this much more expensive microphone. But that's because I don't know how to make, I don't know. One of the things I like about doing all this stuff is learning things. But the flip side of that is I'm ignorant. And so I have not yet figured out how to get the best out of this microphone. It's so sensitive, really, that I should be in a soundproofed room, or a sound treated room. And I'm not. I'm in my office. But that's something else we can fix now because we have money. So yeah, and one of the great things is that we can sort of learn from Critical Role's the lessons that they learned. Like they started off with this microphone hanging over each player, just on from the truss that they built, the wooden truss that they built, and then they switched for about 90 seconds. They switched to lav mics, which we tried, and the lav mic was a very successful experiment, but we didn't have wireless lav mics, although we could now if we wanted to. We didn't have wireless lav mics, so all the players were all tethered, right? And that they didn't complain about that. They're my friends, but I complain about it for them, right? I'm like, this sucks. They shouldn't have to be physically tied to where they're sitting. But then also you have to put a lav mic somewhere, right? It has to go somewhere. And then when you turn to talk to another player, all of a sudden you get this kind of singing in the rain, silent movie recording sound thing where it doesn't make sense anymore. So then they went to microphones on the table, there's one episode where you can see they have mics just sitting on the table, but then every time they roll dice or every time they put a book down, you hear this huge thump. So they've now gone back to the Sennheisers, but I think now they're almost on booms. They're like pointing at the players as opposed to hanging.
Kind of like the shotgun mic stuff. Yeah,
that's exactly it. Yeah. So,
how many of those do you need for streaming though? Like 2, 3?
One for each player.
One for each player, really? Okay.
One for each player you need, because they are these mics are specifically designed to, like, you point them at something. They're almost like parabolic mics. They're not, but they're almost like you point them at something and they pick that up, and they don't.
Right.
They're with like they pick up things directly behind it. So you want to soundproof. If this is your person talking, you want to definitely soundproof this, which is one of the reasons people tend to put the mic up here, right? So that this person's voice goes like this. But it's very little of the slapback, is what they call the echo, is bouncing off the roof, for instance, and coming back to the mic. But yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Getting the good. That's why we have my friend Brian is a professional audio guy, and he's going to be running they have somebody on Critical Role. They have somebody alive mixing the show, so that if suddenly Travis starts laughing really loudly, he pulls Travis down.
Yeah.
So it doesn't blow everybody's ears out, and that is an art, right? It's an art that takes a while to learn the players and their behavior, and we're going to have somebody doing that. So
cool.
Yeah, and I noticed we've learned a lot about the books, and you're putting out a lot of content about what's going to be in the book, because I love the thing you keep saying about, I want to set expectations. I want you to know exactly what you're going to get.
It becomes more important the more people pledge, right? When there was only back, I think I mentioned this earlier on the internet, like back when I thought we would get, maybe 3,000 people backing, and I presumed at that point they would all have been members of the YouTube community. I was less worried about that because those people all kind of know my design and my philosophy, and that's what they're going to get. But now it's self-evident that a whole bunch of people are pledging. Like, once you hit $1 million on Kickstarter, you become what's called a must back, which means that people will start backing it just because they don't want to miss out. What is this thing? What is this thing?
Yeah.
And I want to make those people happy too, right? I want to make everybody who buys the book feel like they got something cool, and that means setting expectations and making sure, because you start noticing, go to any of the comments or go to the subreddit, and people have sort of turned, not everybody, probably a minority of people, have sort of turned this book into kind of like they project all of the things that they wish 5th edition did onto this book. And it's like, but that's not what it is, man. It's just a bunch of charts and a couple of cool special abilities you get if you found a stronghold and attract some followers.
Yeah.
How much of the book is done right now? Because you're working on it actively, but
I would say 60 to 70% of the rules are done. For instance, all of the I'll do a video update about this in the next 2 weeks before the Kickstarter is over, showing off how some of this stuff works behind the scenes. But all of the follower charts are all done. And that was a lot of work in Excel trying to figure out, because each different class has a different percentage chance of attracting each category of followers. So some classes attract military units more readily than others, right? Like paladins and fighters tend to get military units more than warlocks do. And this betrays some biases on my part, I would say more cultural assumptions, right? Like, what's the difference between a warlock and a cleric? One of them serves a god, and the other one dabbles in powers that man was not meant to know. And there's a semiotic meaning to those things, right? That in a culture, a cleric would be more popular with the common people than a warlock. A warlock would freak people out, right? Whereas a cleric is more like, I serve the community. And these assumptions impact what kinds of followers you can attract. But every time I say that, and this is the nature of the beast, this is not a bug. Every time I say that, somebody's like, but my warlock is the hero of the people and everybody loves him. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, there's lots of ways. We literally had somebody saying, like, in the assumption, like I write about in the Paladin follower chart sample, which you can read online, that Paladins come out of the Cavalier tradition. And that's not an assumption of your campaign. That is true in the real world. That's where paladins come from, right? That is an objectively true statement that I was making, and people took exception with that because they are running a paladin that doesn't have a horse or care about that. And I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But the game has its roots in a tradition that I am well familiar with, and those traditions are represented in the rules. So each class has its different chance of attracting different kinds of followers, and then even within that chance, you can have 2 different classes that both have a 15% chance to attract ambassadors, for instance. But this class, there's only 3 ambassadors, and this one there's 8, right? And so you have even within a specific, so it all changes from class to class. And so all that stuff is done. And so now I'm working on it. And the first layer of what do each of the 4 strongholds do? Each of them give you all the follower stuff is done, and the what do I get as my class for building a stronghold, like the paladins divine smite now burning through enemy resistance, but only for a limited amount of time. All that stuff is done, and now what each stronghold does is done. But each stronghold also needs more optional abilities. Because not all of them, I mentioned this online somewhere else, not all of the strongholds give you, some of them empower your character in combat, some of them don't. And there are going to be players and dungeon masters that don't like that. They want it to be, no matter which stronghold I pick, I get some cool ability in combat. So I got to make sure that works. And I've got ambition. There's stuff I want to do. Like, it would be nice if, for instance, right now it's to use the paladin to continue with that example, if I found a stronghold and I've rested at it, then for the next n number of attacks or days, I get this improved divine smite. But it would be nice if that were different depending on which kind of paladin you were.
Yeah.
Right. It would be, I don't know if we're going to do that, but it would be nice. It depends on how much design space I can find there. That's a big problem with, thank God for 4th edition and ripping that stuff off. But it's one of the problems, like it's always tricky with a system that is there's a lot of the stuff that you might, sitting down to design a new ability or enhance an ability for a given class, you very quickly realize that Wizards of the Coast has already gotten there. And there's a spell that does this, or there's an Unearthed Arcana article that covers this. And you're like, okay, well, do I just do it anyway? Because how many people are using that Unearthed Arcana stuff? Or do I have to try to come up with another way to give these classes new abilities that doesn't step on any of the other ways they can get similar abilities? So that's the challenge right now. Most of what's left to be written is the how to use this book stuff, because there's tons and tons of examples, and also sort of showing people how to build. There's right now, there will be, but there isn't yet, how to build your own follower chart. I know how it's going to work, so it doesn't freak me out that it's not written. But people need to be able to. The dungeon master needs to be able to easily tweak a follower chart, and that I think is pretty straightforward. Like, when you look at this stuff, it would be very easy for a DM to go, I don't think this makes sense for this character. I know which character is going to be building the stronghold, but I want her to get this cool ally instead of this one. Fine, just cross it off and write something else on. But actually building your own follower chart is a little bit more elaborate and requires me kind of showing how behind the scenes how they got built in the first place, so that a dungeon master could go, because it would be cool to have a given character have their own unique follower chart. That would be cool.
Yeah.
And I know one thing that a couple of points that I know you've been making, and I definitely want to try to get out there too, is that one, the book was a lot about, I love the Go Juice. The book was about it's about downtime-ish rules versus how you're going to build your castle wall by wall, window by window.
Well, yeah, that happily, explaining to folks that this is not the book where you build, it's not Civ, right? It's not where you build a castle wall by wall. Well, and there are definitely people who want rules like that.
Yeah.
And you saw that in comments and places where like, but that actually sounds really cool. Sometimes when I say it's this, not this, people watching, they had never heard of this before until I mentioned that I wasn't doing it. And then they're like, but that sounds cool. I want that. And I love that. I love that old school kind of, that's the kind of the philosophy of my channel, is that every way that D&D has ever been fun, there are still players out there who don't know it, but they would like that. Yeah. There are brand new players who would love to just do dungeon crawling. They just don't know it. They watch Critical Role, and that's not what they do on that show, so it hasn't occurred to them. But definitely rules for how much do doors cost and stuff like that is not going to be in the book. But I forgot what the question was. Poop.
Oh yeah, and the second part to that was it's downtime, and then the second part was anybody can have a keep, or anybody could have a tower. You don't have to look at it as each class only gets this one thing. It's about your character could use one of these other things if it felt right in the campaign, or your dungeon master felt like it fit.
It's more about what does your character want to do, right? Does your character want to, is there a war happening in your dungeon master's game? And if so, do you want to participate in it? Well, you build a keep. Actually, you could also probably build a temple, because temples are going to give you access to realm magic, or domain magic, I think it's called, where you can cast spells that affect armies or even whole provinces. so there is that something you're interested in? Do you want to raise an army? Do you want to fight a war? Do you need, or are you about to get attacked by an army of bugbears, and so you need to then you build one of these things? Do you want to do spell research? Then you build one of these things. So it's not up to me to say who does that, because, and ultimately, like, let's imagine that, you know, it should be self-evident that a fighter would not want to build a tower, because a tower is for spell research. But that's not true. What if you're an Eldritch Knight? What if you're a fighter? What if you're a multi-class? What if you're a fighter wizard?
Yeah,
right?
we saw that in chat. People are saying about, multi-class won't be represented. I'm like, no, wait, Matt's going to represent that.
there's a quite elegant solution that I'm stealing from another game where, actually, I don't remember where I got this, but like, so when the second book comes out, cross your fingers, it presumes the first book is moderately well received. If everybody hates it, I'm not gonna make a second book, because why would I do that? But if the first book comes out and people are okay with it, then the second book comes out, and one of the things you're gonna do in Kingdoms and Warfare is you're gonna take the map of your world that you may have drawn, you know, just freehand pencil, and you're gonna put a hex grid over it. That's the one thing I need people to do. I'll take care of everything else if you can put a hex grid over your thing, because once you put a hex grid on, now you have provinces. Right now we know where provinces are and where population centers are, and we have like the basic unit of how all this stuff works. And when you do that, sometimes there's some forest in this hex and some plains in this hex. And so the rule for all this stuff always is the person who's doing it gets to pick which it is. Right. So if you're a fighter cleric, then if you pick which of the follower charts you want to roll on, which of the abilities you want to get. Obviously, you pick what kind of stronghold you want to build. It's completely up to you, and you should be able to switch back and forth. By the way, like if you're a paladin rogue, for instance, Liam O'Brien, then when you build your keep, you might build a temple, for instance, because you want to do spell research and learn more about the Raven Queen, and so that's fine. But then, and so when it's finished, you'll attract followers. That's when you get to roll on the chart, is when your keep is finished. Unless your dungeon master doesn't want to wait, which I often don't. I often, as soon as they've spent the money, I let them roll. So that's an option, right? But then they spend it's finished, and they spend some more money later to improve it, and they get to roll again. Well, now you can roll on the rogue follower chart if you want to. You have access to all those charts, and really, there's nothing stopping a player from just going, even though I am a barbarian, the warlock follower chart looks really cool. Can I just roll on that? Why not? Well, it's up to the dungeon master. Be like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah, whatever. So yeah, this is all just my goal is to give the dungeon master not only finished tools they can just roll with and it'll work, but also empower them to make decisions about how to customize this stuff and make it unique to their campaign.
Is it obviously 5th edition is a popular role-playing game and probably the most popular at the moment, but is it system? Is it made for 5th edition, or could I play my 4th or 3rd edition game, or even other RPGs with this, using this rule set?
I would say it's mostly system agnostic, but once you get into modifying class abilities, for instance, then that's not system agnostic. Right. But it depends on, like, from, I think the 3 editions, including the 5th one, there are direct analogs for a lot of these abilities, right? Like Paladin's Divine Smite is also in 4th edition, for instance. If you're playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, I'm not sure what the equivalent is, other than like, I actually, it's been so long, I don't remember what paladins, what special abilities, if any, paladins in 1st edition get. Special abilities are sort of it was more, they're a somewhat modern invention. So it depends, but I would say 80% of it is going to be like, are there still gold dragons in your game? Then yes, if you roll a 96 on this chart, you get a gold dragon ally. Yes, and that can easily be true in any system.
Yeah.
Things like ambassadors, like you attracted an orc ambassador has come to your court, right, and said, "Hey, I represent this orc tribe." What does that mean? It means you can buy orc units now. You didn't used to be able to buy orc units because you're a human, right? But or you were able to buy them; they just cost a lot of money, right? Typically, there's a chart about like who can recruit what units and at what cost, and what does that have to do with what edition you're in? Nothing. It doesn't even, you can do that in any game. You can do that in, 13th Age. If you attract a blacksmith, the blacksmith can make armor and weapons for you, but can also enchant those things if you bring them the right goop. And you have a wizard. You have to have access to, it can be another player character, whatever. If you have access to a wizard or any kind of like arcane spellcaster, then they can make weapons for you. What does that have to do with what edition you're in? Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it feels like a good fit with the West Marches style game too, where you're building the town up where you're starting as you go out and coming back.
Well, yeah, again, it does, like if you're playing a game set in a big city, it's going to be somewhat problematic because where are all these guys? But actually, there's no like frontier. Like, would a stone giant show up in the middle of a city and say, "Hey, I like what you're doing. I want to help out"? Maybe, but yeah, there's definitely a set of assumptions that you're dealing with. Somewhere around here is the forest primeval, right? In which there are beasties that, like, what does it mean to have like an orc ambassador show up or an ambassador of the orc tribes? That means there has to be one of those nearby. And again, if you're in a giant big city and your entire campaign is urban, then that would be an interesting challenge for the dungeon master. It'd be kind of fun, right? Because that means that somewhere in the city are orcs. There's obviously a military orc presence in the city because this dude just showed up that now allows you to buy orc units for an army inside a city. So I think that the utility function of the game is somewhat different if you're in a giant urban game, for instance, or if you're if you're just purely on a boat going from island to island. That's going to be different and weird. But it does assume a kind of old school chaos versus law, kind of civilization versus wilderness, West Marches milieu.
That's a good point to segue to, because you did finally meet your last.
And really only
your goal, the one that you had put out to try to be the top RPG book released on Kickstarter, which you have blown past, and it's the pirate ship. So tell us all about the pirate ship. How's that going?
Well, so it's a pirate ship is a type of keep, and I'm just going to tell you how it works. These are the rules, basically. So if you're watching this and you're like, that sounds stupid, then I'm glad we talked about it, because again, I don't want to sell you a book and you open it up and go, I hate this. But pirate ship lets you. So a keep is one of the 4 basic strongholds, and when you finish your keep, you automatically attract units, meaning military units, like veteran light infantry, right, or elite heavy cavalry. And those terms, by the way, all mean different things. Those are all mechanical terms that have an impact on the stats of your units. And the rules in the book, the basic rules, there'll be more advanced rules later, but the basic rules for warfare are going to be in here. And we've already play tested those a little. We'll be play testing them a lot more now. But so if you build a keep, you automatically get some units. Now, anybody can buy units. They just cost more, and the upkeep, the season by season upkeep, is more expensive if you don't have a keep. So keep just makes it cheaper. And a pirate ship is a type of keep, so it does the same thing. So you can easily imagine that the guys on your galleon are your units, right? And they've got, which is kind of how we would expect a pirate ship to work, right? They've got weapons and armor and all that stuff, and you can sail your ship around. This is during downtime again. So the dungeon master would say, Lucian, what do you want to do with your pirate ship? And you're like, I want to send it to this town here on the coast. I want to raid that town. Great, no problem. We're going to go on an adventure, a regular everyday adventure. We're going to go play against a cult of reptile god or whatever, Red Hand of Doom. And when we get back, I will tell you what happened with your pirate ship, right? Gotcha. And and you get to make a die roll, and it's about what happens when my pirate. So it has units. It's basically a mobile keep. And it's a variation of the rules for a barbarian camp, because a barbarian camp is kind of the maybe not quintessential, but the first one I wrote, mobile stronghold, right? So it moves around, but a barbarian camp gets slower. It moves fewer provinces per season, the larger it is, right? While the pirate ship's the other way around. It goes faster. The bigger, the more money you've spent on your ship, the faster it goes, because the greater surface area of the sails. And so it's mobile, it can move around unlike a normal keep. And when you send it to it generates revenue just all by itself. Like, you're going to make a roll every season, how much booty have your pirates looted, right? And it'll be up to the dungeon master to decide, how did they get this? Did they raid another ship? Have you made an enemy? Probably. Or did they go and raid a town or something like that? So, like, establishments generate cash all by themselves. And there are some followers you can attract that generate cash, like farmers just generate money because they raise crops that you then sell. So a pirate ship, like an establishment, raises money. It has units on it. It is mobile. And then if you send it to raid a coastal town, then you get to roll, and you can basically degrade the development level of that town. It goes from being one level of prosperity or a complexity to a lower one. It's not automatic. There is a roll, and there are obviously narrative repercussions to these things. Like, you just really upset somebody, by the way, and that person's going to be angry at you, and that's kind of the political layer that you are tacitly putting on top of your game when you get these rules. Because the whole idea of building a stronghold is you're attracting followers because people in the local area approve of you and the things you've done, and they've heard of you. You're now the way you got that money. How did you afford this keep? You did something crazy. You saved somebody. You looted something. You cleared out a dungeon. You got a bunch of cash. But that thing you did made you famous in the local area. People are like, these guys are cool. We like them. Or they're notorious. It doesn't necessarily have to be. You can be an evil character and use these rules. By the way, there is all these charts for chaotic evil followers, lawful evil followers. You can get a bone devil and stuff like that as a special ally. But you're notorious, and people in the local area, somebody in the local area approves of what you've done and wants to come support you. Either a follower, and you can tell them what to do, or a special ally, and you can't really tell them what to do, but they want to help. The flip side of that is there are people who are angry at you. Yeah. Your actions have disturbed the steady state world. This is something we talked about in the politics video. Is not even you building a stronghold per se. That's more of a symbol. But you doing the things you did that got you the cash that afforded you the ability to buy the stronghold changed the steady state world and becomes an inciting incident. And as a result, you're going to upset somebody, and that's a great way to narratively generate new bad guys. Who in this local area. A warlord, like an orc tribal leader, or the duke or the count doesn't like the idea that you are taking over this place. Maybe they wanted this. Maybe they didn't even know that ruined castle was there that you are renovating, and they consider it theirs. They consider it part of their domain. And so that's this is strongholds and followers, and then later on kingdoms and warfare, and you put those two things together, and now you've got a politically sophisticated campaign.
So that.
Do you want us to talk a little so you can take?
No. I love doing this stuff.
No, we love listening. That's why we're just
great.
Quiet.
No, you kind of already talked about this, but the politics of it. Someone from chat here, Agrippa the Green, said, "How do you feel about setting up a government along with your fortress? And will there be any guidelines or anything to help set up a government?" And you were kind of like if you do become this new popular guy in town, and the count doesn't like this, you could maybe take over his government or something. But
well, I mean, if that's definitely a step, it would be ambitious, right? You got to raise an army and go fight that guy, and he probably has his own forces and would like, or she have their own forces and would like you not to do that. But there's definitely language in the book for, hey, you're basically building a small town. Like the people, when you roll in the follower chart, those aren't the only people that show up, right? It takes a lot of people to build or renovate any kind of stronghold.
Right.
It takes carpenters. It takes stonemasons. It takes people providing food for all these people, right? Traders and carters and ultimately farmers. And those people all have families and they live somewhere, and they're eventually going to want to move onto your land because it'd be easier to live here than it is to go home every night. Or, but you're this huge camp arises around your keep, and that camp becomes a kind of town, and that's your town. How do you want to run it? Right. And so there will be language, if I remember, there will be language in the book for, like, if you watched, did we live stream this? I do not remember. But when Nicodemus, my friend EJ's Eldritch Knight, when they decided they were going to take over Broken Spire Keep from Night Below and renovate it, and he was going to make it his, I made sure that there was a session where, the people working the land, the people helping him build this place, one of them was a kid, and there was a very wealthy stonemason, and the kid stole the stonemason's, I think it was a torque or something. It was really that he had taken off for work. The kid just stole it and got caught. And now it's up to, this is the simplest possible drama imaginable, right? This kid who's on your land has stolen something. What are you going to do? And it was fun. There's a great series that I strongly recommend all Dungeon Masters watch. I believe it's free online, called Ethics in America. It was done by PBS, and it's like almost like real world D&D, where this moderator has a bunch of guests on, and the subject is like, what is the role of a reporter in a war? Right? What is a doctor's obligation to a patient? But the people he had on his show were like, that's General Westmoreland. That's the dude that was in charge of the war in Vietnam. He's pitching all these hypothetical situations, much like a dungeon master, right? And then constantly permuting them and throwing the guests curveballs. And you watch that show and you're like, this is what a dungeon master does. And that's so when EJ has on his land this very simple crime, and he's trying to figure out, what do I do with this kid, right? And the kid has parents, and he needs the parents as workers to build his castle. And so I'm constantly tweaking. Just when he thinks he's got it figured out, I have another NPC, another villager, complain and get disgruntled about this solution, that solution, and he's like, this is harder than I thought, right? And that's the juice. That's the goal of the dungeon master, is to put the player into these situations where they believe in what's happening, but there isn't an obvious right answer. And so there will be language and advice for how to do that stuff in the book.
Cool.
Yeah. And the Kickstarter really is it's like a 3-pronged monster. You got a trident going on of stuff that you're offering, and we've
already
been
a very weird Kickstarter.
Yeah, we've been hearing a ton on the book itself, which is great, because I think that's where, and I guess the question will be, do you think this is where you're getting most of your pledges from? Is it from the book? Are you getting most of your pledges from the stream? Or are you getting most of your pledges from the miniatures? Because it's really a three tier thing that anybody can do.
I think we'll see. We'll probably do like a survey afterwards, and who knows how many people will fill it out. But I strongly suspect that at least the early, it may be changing over time as people in different parts of the internet hear about this thing. But certainly the initial success of the Kickstarter, the first $700,000, that was just people in the community who just want to support the channel. Right? That was people who watch, like, I think I mentioned this somewhere else. I talked about, like, in the 20 or 30 seconds it took me between clicking go live on the Kickstarter and switching to the YouTube page, so the YouTube video was also live at the same time and people get notifications. In however long it took to do that, we already had 3 pledges. What?
I was looking online, and somebody on Twitter was saying, I was on his page hitting refresh. I knew that he was going to do it that day.
and that's the thing, is we hadn't said, hey, it's going live tomorrow. I had said only 3 days earlier, I had said, we've submitted the Kickstarter for approval, because you have to. And they say it usually takes about 3 days. And so people had kind of reverse engineered that it must be going live on Friday morning. And we're just sitting there refreshed. Like, those people, I think, are the hardcore fans of the channel, and they just wanted a chance to support it and get more content, and they're gonna. And so I don't think, I'll tell you, so I would say that, I'm just guessing. I'm not the person to ask. Actually, the community is the people to ask. But I would guess that it's probably split 50-50 between stream and book. And of course, I think a lot of people want both. I think the minis are I think there are people that think, I don't think we've really given people enough information to make good decisions about the minis. We've only got one piece of concept art, which, you know, and in retrospect, that I should have, I thought that I naively thought that people, this is so dumb. I thought, well, we'll show people what one mini will look like, and they can kind of imagine what the rest of the minis will look like. But that's not a good strategy when you're asking people to spend money. Right? Asking people to spend money, they don't want to have to guess what the other 4 minis are going to look like. They want to know.
Yeah.
So instead of having my friend Anthony, who was going to be finishing final art, like that adult ruby dragon, that's the art that's going to be in the book. It's done. He was working on finishing the art for the ancient sapphire dragon, which is going to be this, you know, this is going to be crazy looking dragon, which I can't wait to see. I asked him to kind of put that down and just do roughs for all the other 4 minis, so we can get it done ideally before the Kickstarter ends, and we can show people this is what these creatures will look like. And once we've done that, I think we'll see the miniature backers go up a little bit, and his roughs look amazing. So it's not like it's going to be these crazy like pencil sketches and you have to kind of turn it sideways or anything like that. I've shown off Anthony's roughs on my live chat before, and people are blown away by them. So the roughs for the other 4 minis should give people a lot more confidence in pledging for the minis, which I completely understand. Every complaint I've heard about this Kickstarter, I look at it and go, yeah, no, that you're right. That's a good point. And then also we should have, so we've got, this is the beginning, Saturday is the beginning of week 3. So we have 2 more weeks, the rest of this week, and then 1 more week. And we should have soon a finished sculpt, a finished 3D model of the adult ruby dragon we can show people, and that will again build confidence in the minis. And then in hopefully only a couple of days after that, or maybe a week, but we still have a week after that, we'll have the 3D prototype. We'll have a print. We'll have an actual physical model I can show off and hold in my hand.
Nice.
And so between getting more concepts and between showing off the sculpt and then ideally the 3D prototype, if we can get all that done in the next 2 weeks, then I think people will be a lot more confident about the minis. It's kind of amazing that people were, in retrospect, it's kind of amazing as many people as have backed the minis when all we did was shown off. Like, I should have had Anthony do 5 roughs instead of 1 finished piece. Right. But I thought people seeing 1 finished dragon, people would be like, ooh, and they did say that, but then they immediately said, where are the other 4? So yeah, it's in fact, we structured the Kickstarter kind of, we assumed there would be a lot of people because of the robustness of the board game ecology on Kickstarter. We assumed there'd be a lot of people who would show up just because these minis are unique. They're unique to the Kickstarter, and they're done by an artist that doesn't do minis, and they look different than normal Dungeons and Dragons art. He's got quite his own style, and which I think is excellent. It's the reason I asked him to come on board. And we assume people would be like, I don't play D&D, but I want those minis. So
right.
If you look at the pledge levels, the minis start off being just all by themselves, and then they don't get rolled into everything else until much later. And so yeah, that was I think that hasn't happened yet. I don't think we've gotten any no, I don't think anybody outside the D&D Matt Colville ecology is really pledging right now, as far as they just want minis. But they might if we can show off more and better examples of what the dragons can look like.
Cool. Another good question from chat, and you were kind of talking about this, like, is it Warfare and Kingdoms and Warfare? Do you have another book, another supplement, another Kickstarter kind of in the works?
Yeah, in fact, I think if you want to get it's always tricky, it's like this, but going to be different. And people look at this and they don't know how it's going to be different. They go, but it's going to be probably like my version of a book that I think you can get in the DMs Guild, called Fields of Blood, the Book of War, which is a book I did for 3rd edition with a company called Eden Studios. And I was not the only writer on it, but I was the lead designer on it. And it's very 3rd edition-y. It's super crunchy. It's not it's very kind of got low level mechanics running around inside it. But so I've already done a book like that, and so I have my own philosophy about how that stuff should work, and every edition I update that stuff to make it more in tune. I was part of the playtest. I think a lot of people were. There was millions of people. They were part of the playtest for 5th edition. And it's funny because a lot of the stuff they mentioned in the playtest, a lot of the why are we doing it this way isn't in the printed books. So if you weren't in that playtest, you don't know why the game works the way it does. But if you were, then you know a lot about the philosophy behind 5th edition and about the role of, what are random charts for? There are a lot more there are a lot more random charts in 5th edition than there were in 4th or 3rd. And so, and that notion of using natural language, which goes back to like 2nd edition, first and 2nd edition, using natural language to describe things on purpose, because you want the dungeon master to have to make a ruling. There are all these places in 5th edition that I now feel confident. I know why it was written that way. I know it's written this way on purpose so that I have to decide what that means. Right. Because the logic of let's make sure, and Mike Merles is a big proponent of this, going back to his work on 4th edition. That logic of let's make sure that we have explained everything in as robust a way as possible succeeds in making it so that anybody can run this game, but it fails at making good dungeon masters. Right? Because the dungeon master has to make rulings. Like the dungeon master has to be able to, on the fly, kind of learn the virtues of being consistent in their rulings. Right? Because the players need that. They need to know they can trust the DM to be consistent, because that is part of being fair. And 5th edition is all about using natural language and kind of making sure that, so that's, if you look at Fields of Blood, the Book of War, it's all about that. Like, let's make sure everything is spelled out and there's rules for everything down to the nitty gritty details. But 5th edition is a lot more about just empowering the DM to understand things and be able to kind of make decisions and say, even though you gave me this option, I kind of know how it works. I can change it and make it. And so that's what Strongholds and Followers is all about. It has a lot of language in there for that. And Kingdoms and Warfare is going to do the same thing. It's all going to be about domain or realm management and about fighting, how to run your whatever it is, your county or duchy or barony, and then how to fight big wars, how to fight big battles.
Excellent.
And with the stream, which is actually I was number 504 of your Kickstarter. So and I love the book. I'll probably use the book, but I am super excited about the stream.
Oh wow, yeah, me too.
I know a lot of people are saying, want to compare you guys to Critical Role, and I love that show too, but it's not really the same, because to me, your show, which you can see on your channel even earlier, that you even already had done.
Yeah, we've already streamed. Yeah.
More like a real game that I would see at my table than Critical Role would ever be at my table, right?
It is both our blessing and our curse.
Right.
That the Critical Role has somewhere north of 50,000 people giving them $5 a month to watch them play D&D. Yeah. And the reason they do that is because they are it's lightning in a bottle. And I think it's always interesting to me to watch other people try to replicate that success, because they can't do it. Can't be done, I don't think. I think it is a unique intersection of these people who are all professional actors. So they're also, a lot of them have formal training in improv. And they didn't know that many of them had not played D&D. This is their first game, and they didn't know how much of their own background would be relevant in this new hobby of theirs. And they're all friends outside the show, and they were all friends outside the show for years before it started. I've seen other shows kind of try to cast their live show, like literally put out casting calls and get actors and stuff, especially some of the stuff that's produced in LA. And it's like, guys, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. and they genuinely love the game. And so that is like, no one can compete with that. And if held to that standard, anyone else, including us, are going to fail. But the thing, I don't even think that our major, I was actually talking to Matt Mercer about this, this last week at lunch, and he was like, the thing that separates your brand from mine, if I'm Matt Mercer telling the story, is that he goes, you give everything away and I keep everything behind the screen, right? He goes, where you are constantly showing everyone, here are all my notes, here's everything I did, because you want them to run the game, and that is the value added to your stream. It's not that you're normal people. There are lots of normal people you can watch online playing D&D. It's that I've been doing this for 30 years and I've developed a lot of techniques and tricks, and I want you to have them. And if you can come sit behind the screen with me and see all this stuff, you will. I said that when I first started the YouTube channel and it was taking off, quote unquote, and it was doing well, I was like, I gotta stream. I gotta show people, because they are building this version of Matt Colville in their head, who is this demigod, and and his game must be amazing. I'm like, no, it's not really. It's just like everybody else's. Just
a game.
It's just like everybody else's. I'm not that guy. I'm not who you think. I'm just a regular schmuck like the rest of you. And I've been doing this since 1986, 87, and I still get incredibly nervous when I start, and I hem and haw, and it's it's just like anybody else's game. And so that's not, for a lot of people, not going to be that entertaining to watch. But for some people, it's going to be super revealing and empowering, and it's going to make them feel like they can do it. Every time we stream, I have people who have in the chat have gone, oh hell, I can do that. And I'm like, yes, you can. But that being said, I am a professional storyteller. I'm a writer. And I think that there is definitely, so far, one of the things I've learned, which I didn't expect, by the way, was that people like the crazy ideas I come up with. People like the fact that Tom was the master of locusts in my game. He was a monk, and there are unique monk titles in my game that I made up, by the way, in that moment when I wanted to make an encounter with a bunch of monks more interesting. I was like, what, one of these guys is, I'll make him the master of locusts. I didn't know what it meant. But I'm making that kind of like on-the-fly improv world building that I do. I definitely have discovered there is it may be very small, but there is an audience for that. There are people that are like, Matt's ideas are cool. And so if you want those ideas, this is the stream where they are featured. Yeah.
What are you most excited about from this Kickstarter? Like, are you the book or the stream? Like, what's giving you anxiety? Like, what's on your mind when you're dealing with this?
Well, definitely the overwhelming sense that I have is one of concern that I deliver the things we promised.
Yeah.
I don't, again, people project onto this. They see the book and they imagine that it's going to be like when we were talking about pirate ships. Suddenly, and for a lot of people, the book became the pirate adventure book.
Right.
And I was like, no, it's not what it is. It's literally like half a page of text about pirate ships. So people project onto this, and they imagine that the success of this Kickstarter means that I'm now, running around like Kermit the Frog, being like, yay, and I've got just scads of money that I'm sleeping in. But in fact, what it makes me do is freak out and worry and be like, okay, these are way, way more people than I imagine are now counting on me to produce a product. And everyone working on it, I'm on the hook. Like Lars, Anna, Jerry, they don't have to do any writing. They don't have to do any design. It's Matt Colville is. So I've got to get, and they all very badly want to deliver on September, right? Very badly. They don't want to be, but everybody does this. Doesn't every Kickstarter want to be the one that actually delivers on their dates?
Yes.
Oh, we really want to deliver on our dates, right? We really want to do that. And so that's a lot of work. And so those are the things that worry me. As far as looking forward to stuff, I'll tell you what I'm most looking forward to. And this may sound strange, but hopefully folks can relate. I'm looking forward to having my own office.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the streaming space that we have to get anyway is going to be the MCDM Productions office. That was going to happen no matter what. Like, as soon as you need office space to stream, we have to build our own studio. As soon as you need that space, that means that's where I'm going to be moving a lot of my work and production into. And I'm really looking forward to having my own space and being able to decorate it with all my own nonsense and being able to have people over to the office anytime to play games on the amazing table that we're getting. And that kind of like freedom and responsibility to me is really attractive. And the subset of that is I'm really looking forward to running D&D again. I haven't run D&D. I haven't run D&D since like last August, I think. And that is a long drought for me. That's longer than normal for me. So I'm looking forward to the new campaign a lot. I'm looking forward to, I have a lot of really cool ideas. And also I'm looking forward to, this both makes me nervous, but it's something that has to be done. And I think doing it will be both fun and educational for people. I was originally going to run this game in this book right here, which is Monty Cook's Tolus, The City by the Spire, which is this 700-page tome all about one city.
Wow.
And I've run games in Tolus before, and I don't think it's, unless you're Monty Cook, I don't think it's really possible to know that city that well because it's 700 pages. But then I was like, and I went so far as considering, because I know the guy that runs his business, my friend Charles Ryan, I even considered just going to them and saying, how much do you want for me to own this? Like, I'm just going to buy it from you. It's something you guys printed 10 years ago. And now you guys have a whole other different brand. And so I'm sure it makes some amount of money for you, but it's not a going concern. But then I was like, you know what? I should just, like, if I went online and talked about this, people would just tell me, you should make your own city. We want to see that. And so that's what I decided to do. I'm going to design and build. Oh, it's going to take the whole campaign. It's not going to be something that's going to be done before we start. It's something that will only just have begun by the time we start. But it will be a whole big city book that we're going to put together from scratch. And some of that work is going to get done live, probably in a stream, where I'll just say, okay, like, here's what I know about this city. Let's start fleshing it out and show people my thought process. And also then, ideally, what will happen is people will watch the stream and they'll be like, wow, Capital, which is the name of the city. In fact, the reason, I've never mentioned this before, but in the future of my campaign setting, all seats of power become capital cities, right? Just like it is here in the real world. But the reason they do that is because of this city and its proper name, right? It becomes kind of the archetype in these cultures for the city from which all power emanates. And so that's why it's called capitals. I like that notion of reverse engineering. Why do the words in our language work the way they do? And it's going to be a big, huge city, and people will watch the stream. Ideally, some people will watch the stream and go, that place is cool. And then they'll go watch all the work I did making up, and they will imagine in their head, based on if I do it right. So, 50-50 on this. If I do it right, people watching the stream will just think this is a really well-detailed, cool city, and they'll want to run games in it. And they won't realize until they go back and watch the prep that I've done and the videos I make showing my prep, that I'm making all this up as I go, right? That I'm making up which part of the city the player is going to be in this, right before that stream that night. And that it's not going to be Matt Colville spends 3 years designing a city supplement and then we play in it. It's going to be Matt Colville spends a couple of weeks working on the outline for the city and then populates it as the players explore it. And that to me is going to be both, scary, but also I think fun, and will help empower dungeon masters to do their own creation.
Okay.
And that really kind of makes MCDM is now a company, and I assume it's kind of your full focus. But I assume, because you've already been putting the videos out still that aren't even related to Kickstarter. Like just last night or the night before, you just put out, had nothing to do with Kickstarter. So you're still going to do Kickstarter stuff, but you're still doing, running the game stuff. Yep. You're still going to be writing your book, the third book that's still going out. So how does Turtle Rock still fit into that with you? How does I'm just incredibly lucky. There's no other way to put it. But Turtle Rock doesn't really need any writing right now. They need a little bit. They need a couple of hours a week, I would say,
of writing, and maybe even not like a couple of hours of this week and then nothing for a month at this stage. So right now there isn't a whole lot for me to do at Turtle Rock, and I would love to get, and even when there's no, like, I think I wrote all of the dialogue in Evolve over the course of about 3 months, and that didn't take a long time. It was a very intense time. So, it's up to those guys, but the arrangement we have right now is that sort of like on retainer, where it's when we need you, we know we can count on you, and that makes me happy because that's what I want. I don't ever want I love those guys. I would not have gotten here without them. My first camera that I bought was with my bonus from Turtle Rock that year. So I love those guys, and writing and video games are close to my heart. So it's like when they need me, I'm going to get the writing done. And it's possible that there'll be a project in the future that requires a lot of writing, but that could only happen at a point where MCDM is more stable anyway, because it'd be so at this stage of production, it would have to be like not even this year, like next year. And so it's my hope, like, I've got a schedule of writing right now. I'm ahead on the schedule for writing. Who knows how long that will obtain. Running the Kickstarter takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And so, but I'm still trying to get writing done before the Kickstarter, even during the Kickstarter. It is my goal that we can say, okay, here's when the first draft needs to be done. And that means there's this many days and there's this many words per page, which means we need to get this much writing done every day. And I am not somebody I can't write for 8 hours a day. I can write for between 2 and 4 hours a day, and then my brain starts to melt. So the way I normally do things is I say, okay, that means I need to get this much done every day, and then I'll make my deadline. And after I've done that for a couple of days and it becomes obvious this is going to work, then I can sort of relax and I can work on other stuff that day, right? I can wake up in the morning, I can spend a couple hours getting my word count done and be confident that we're going to meet this deadline. And then I can spend the rest of the day doing stuff like making videos or, writing Fighter, which is something that I want to do. But that'll happen. But that can't happen until confidence is built in the schedule and the word count. Because if I'm not meeting, if waking up in the morning, spending a couple of hours writing isn't getting the job done, then I need to spend more time writing. And that means spending less time doing other stuff. But even then, we'll reach a point where it's obvious we're going to cross that finish line, at least that first finish line of getting the playtest stuff already. Which means all the rules done in a readable context. And when it's obvious that we're going to make that deadline, then I can spend the rest of any given day, I can spend making videos for people, working on, I'd like to take another stab at recording my own audiobook, right? It's kind of part and parcel of all this stuff is I've got the setup, I have a closet, because I have this whole house to myself, I've got a closet that I soundproofed or sound treated, so I can go in there and record and it sounds okay. And people, I have not yet been happy with any of my attempts to do an audiobook, but every time I do it and listen back to it, I'm like, I can do better. And so I want to go back and give that another stab. So all that stuff is on the table.
Well, we don't want to keep you forever, but I've got one.
But not really.
I got to get my writing done today.
Yeah, you got writing to do. I've got one more question that's kind of a silly one, but I liked it from chat. MJS October asks, will you ever make a synth album D&D soundtrack for us?
So yeah, this is something that I've gotten into just in like January is when I started. And it was sort of, and it's modular synthesis. And music has been a huge part of my life ever since I was a kid. I used to be kind of a semi-professional singer. I was in the Orange County Pacific. I was in the Pacific Chorale for a little while as a kind of they pay you like, there's a level of singer where they're paying you $50 a week, which is basically nothing, but they pay you that much so that you can then, they want to keep you. They don't want you to leave. And now you can kind of shop yourself around to other choirs as a professional singer, even though they're not paying much. So that was where I was in my career at one point when I was in college. And music's always been a big part of my life. And when I was writing the Critical Role comic, I started to get into modular synth. I bought, go look this up online. I bought a Moog. It's technically Moog, but come on. Moog Mother 32. And the Mother 32 is a self-contained synthesizer in a box. And I watched a video of this dude, and he was basically playing Blade Runner music. And I was like, what is that? How is he doing that? And the guys that invented modular synthesis, Don Buchla and Robert Moog, they felt like they had come up with a way for normal people to make music, right? It doesn't really involve keyboard or guitar or any of the stuff that you learned. You had lessons out when you were a kid and you hated. And it's just a blast. And I love it. And I've since then spent a ridiculous, stupid amount of money. And that was the problem. I made a promise to myself when I was working on the Critical Role comic was that I wasn't going to monkey with my synthesizer until I was done. I got to finish this, got to knuckle down, finish this comic. The result of that was, since I decided I wasn't going to play with it, I just bought more modules. That was my way of like of playing with it without playing with it. So the number of modules just increased enormously, and now I've actually produced something that was close to being a composition.
Nice.
It was a song, quote unquote, with like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I uploaded it and posted it on Twitter. And I'm going to try and replicate it probably tonight. If you watch our live stream tonight, sometime between 5 and 7, we go live. I'm probably going to try and replicate that same patch. And I have no intention of releasing an album. However, I do intend on using this for the stream. I do think that it would be cool, depending on what the players are doing. And it's easy to imagine if they're ever in the world below, which is my extra dimensional version of the Underdark, using this thing to generate all the sounds and music that they hear. I think that would be a lot of fun. And there's a type of patch. A patch is like a way of solving this puzzle that is a modular synthesizer. There's a type of patch called a generative patch, or a self-generating patch, where you plug it in and you turn it on and it makes music by itself. And there's no notes on your part. It's just doing it by itself, and it's changing and permuting over time like an organic thing. And something like that for D&D would be great.
Sounds awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and chatting with us. This was a lot of fun.
I had a great time.
Truly are a gifted storyteller, because like this is the easiest interview I think I've ever done. Because you're just like, I'm going to talk. It's going to be great.
Well, I'm happy to. I'm happy to be on. It was a blast. You guys asked good questions, by the way. So if that's coming from chat, then congratulations, chat.
Yeah, good job. We stole some from chat, because chat's great. So, and thank you all guys for watching in our stream today. This is great. This is going to be, I'm saving the recording, and it'll be up on my YouTube channel on Monday. So if people missed it, you can catch it live on Solution's Twitch channel or Monday on my channel. You can find Mr. Matt Colville. Just Google him. You'll find a whole bunch of stuff. Kickstarter, YouTube channel. He does great work if you don't know who he is, but I'm sure you do. So,
forget the Kickstarter. If you're watching this and you're not running D&D for whatever reason, go to my YouTube channel, Running the Game, because you can do it. It's fun. Not only is it fun, it's a lot easier than you think. And it's Dungeons and Dragons is the most fun you can have with your brain. So, and I watched somebody online the other day saying, I don't know, this wasn't even myself. This is on just somewhere on the internet. Somebody's like, I'm really interested in D&D, but I don't know anybody who plays. And it's like, that's not how it works. You make people who play.
Yes.
You just go to these people and say, we're playing D&D. Here's your character sheet, some dice.
It's exactly what I did. I realized that if I wanted to play this game, I was going to have to Dungeon Master, because none of my friends were as interested. And then I forced them to play. And we've now been playing the same campaign for about 4 years. And it's just
don't wait for people to come to you. You got to just go to them and say, hey, we're playing D&D. And they're like, what's that? You're like, well, here's a character sheet and some dice. You'll find it.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
A little bit of improv, you're good. Thank you again. With that, we're going to close out the stream, guys, but thank you for watching. And I guess I just keep saying thank you, but we'll see you guys next Saturday for another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Take care.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Peace out.